Hello, friends, and welcome. A, I had a request for some weight bearing. B, we're starting to get slightly cooler temps. Now, as I say that, here in Minnesota, it's supposed to be in the mid to high 90s. So we still have one more day and then hopefully we'll cool down. But some of us are starting to cool down a little bit. So we're going to go into some standing poses because they're some of my favorite weight bearing poses for building that strength. And especially for my friends with osteoporosis and osteopenia. And there are a lot in our community, right? And it runs in my family. So I imagine I will probably get it at some point in time as well. So that said, whether you have it or not is beside the point. Weight bearing is good for every body, right? If you're able to do these poses. Oh, yeah. Hello, friends, and welcome. Namaste. We are going to do standing poses today. One, because I got a request for weight bearing poses for one of the friends in our community with osteoporosis and osteopenia. And so we're going to add some of that in. And B, we're starting to like come up out of floor work and that kind of softer, subtler, gentler stuff. We'll still have some of that. We'll still have water element. It's still pretty hot in a lot of our environments, but it is cooling down. All of that said, find yourself in Tadasana. Your eyes can be opened or closed. And either way, have a really soft, we call it drishti in yoga. And that's your gazing point, meaning you're not taking information in detail. It's almost like you're staring into outer space. And you just have a really soft focus. And then if the eyes aren't as focused in taking in detail of something else, can we start to turn inward? We need a few more muscles to turn on standing than we do seated. And yet, there are potentially muscles that are holding and helping right now that you do not need to have contracted. So check in. Check into that breathing body. Maybe that's noticing the breath at the nostrils, the movement of the rib basket, the belly. And anything else that there is to notice. And then when you're ready, go ahead and open those eyes if they're closed. I'm simply going to turn myself because I'm on a little bit of an angle and it's a little nicer for my body. If I'm facing this way, we're just going to do the arms of the sun salutation. So inhale, reach those arms out and up. Maybe the chin lifts lightly. Exhale, bring those arms out and down. So just the arms at the moment. Inhale, reach those arms out and up. Maybe fingertips touch or palms come together. It's a little too early in my practice. Exhale for me to do that comfortably in my shoulders. That will probably come with time. And again, inhale. This time when you're at the top, stay at the top. I'll turn here, face you. You're going to grab your left wrist and lean right. If it's not okay to grab your wrist or you need your hand on your hip, I hope you know to take care of yourself. Take a full breath there, just opening left side, coming up, grabbing right wrist and leaning left. And again, once you get there, stay there if you can for a breath. You can imagine breathing into the right lung and come back up. Go ahead and bring those arms all the way down. Interlace your hands behind you. Push your thumbs into your sacrum, and with bent elbows, that just gives a little freedom in the joints. They're not so taut, right? We can usually find more in the chest. So there with the elbows bent, I push into the sacrum, right? I even move my tailbone down since my hands are there and I can help that action. And hopefully that correlates to my collarbone beginning to broaden. Take another breath from that space. I just had two squirrels run up. I don't think they quite made it to camera. And then maybe you start to straighten the arms a little, maybe not. Maybe you bend the knees and you start to forward fold. So keep the knees quite bent for this, right? We haven't done much in the legs, and this is more about the upper body than the legs. So let your shoulders lift up to the sky. Maybe your knuckles can come off your low back, maybe not. We all have different shoulder girdles, right? And breathing, let the neck soften and hang, especially right at the base of the skull. It's called the occiput. Soften those muscles. To come up, we're going to reach our knuckles back and we're going to come all the way up and release those hands down by the side and just pause and notice if anything has shifted since that very first Tadasana that we did. So Tadasana is going to be our blueprint pose today. My friends who work with me regularly, you know I love blueprint poses and training in the art of not doing, of observing, right? Okay, so walk those feet just a little bit wider than your hips, not too wide, maybe about, probably no wider than the short edge of your mat, we'll say. And we've been doing this lately, right? Bringing that water element in, which is a lot like watermelon, that water element in by just really gently, slowly moving fluidly with the breath, right? So just move those hippies back and forth. And then if it feels okay, go ahead and start to circle the hips. We're just going to wake up some of those bigger joints, get them ready for movement, and go ahead and go the other direction. Careful of locking out knees, my hyperextenders. And then figure 8 is the last bit. And you can either imagine a figure 8's not, doesn't come easily, right? You can imagine your tailbone drawing a figure 8 on the canvas underneath it. Or you can literally think of the right hip moving forward, out wide into the back, and then it'd be the left hip doing the same motion. And then you're going to reverse it, right hip back, out to the side and forward, and the same thing with the left, right? And then go ahead and bring those hips back to center. Bend the knees just a little bit straight forward at the moment. So it's basically like a wide chair pose, right? And we don't have to go down far. It's not about the strength of it yet, right? Right now, it's just about moving the knee joints. And then go ahead and turn your feet out to about a 45, and they can stay a little wider still. And again, we're going to bend the knees in line with second toes. So you can look down and make sure that's happening. And we're not going into full squat. We're just waking up the knee joints and lubricating them. Come on up, bring those feet in. And just to say hi to the ankles, you can go ahead and reach the right toes back and try to come to the top of your toenails if you can. And then I'm pushing my heel forward and down, trying to stretch out the front of my ankle. And then go ahead and reach that leg out in front of you. Put the heel down in front of you and pull those toes, the ball mounds more than the toes, those ball mounds of the toes back towards the front of the knee. Just saying hi to the calf muscle too. And bring that down. Your left toes back behind you, trying to come on the toenails if you can. If you need to be on the tippy toes, that's okay. You won't get as much of an ankle stretch, and that's okay. Let that heel move forward towards the ground, right? Pulling, lengthening through the front of that ankle. Reach that heel out, flex the foot, pull the ball mounds up and back. Bring that foot down. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just start to go into some of the standing pose. So Tadasana, I want to take just a moment in Tadasana because it's not only the blueprint pose for us today between stuff, but it's literally called the blueprint pose for all standing poses because there's an element of Tadasana in each of them. So the feet are about hip distance. Find the weight in all 3 corners. It's just going to get harder from here on out to do that, right? Palm onto the big toes, palm onto the pinky toes, very center of the calcaneus bone. That's the whole back third of your foot, by the way. So it's right in the center of that bone. And then from there, bend the knees just a little bit. When we go to straighten them, move slow, right? Pushing down into the 6 tripod corners. Pull the kneecaps up when you go to straighten the legs, AKA activate quads. That pelvic wheel, right? The frontal hip points up, the buttocks flesh down without hardening the abdomen and losing the curve of the low back. And be careful about the rib cage. That's some of us, our solar plexus kind of flares and explodes, right? And then shoulder blades a little back together and down. It's not an extreme version, but for most of us, we're forward, right? So we're just trying to find neutral. Ears move back over the shoulders, shoulders over the hips, hips over the heels to the best of your ability today. Of course, if that doesn't feel right for you, find what does. Okay. Now go ahead and step those feet out nice and wide. we're going to start with our externally rotated leg series, right? So turn your left toes in, your heel back, get that foot at about a 45-ish. I'm not a big math person, but just turn the toes forward a little bit, right? And then go ahead and turn that whole right leg out. And by forward, I mean where we're going to be facing in a moment. Now look down at that thigh and have that knee, that thigh, and that shin and toes all pointing to the right. Keep that. Don't let that turn with you, but can you turn your chest back to the long edge, right? Without torque in the body. Hands on hips. Let's just come in and out a couple of times. So bend that right knee and come on up. Look down, and when you bend that right knee, hopefully that knee is over the ankle-ish, right? It's not the only way to do it. Inhale up. It's just the bone stacking situation that we're working with today, right? And come on in as time, stay in. The pelvis would love nothing more than tilt like this. It's easiest, it's the least path of least resistance. That's what I'm trying to say. So pull that right hip point up and get that left bottom of the brief line in a little bit. Even if that means coming out of the bend, that's okay. I'm not a big believer in 90-degree bends if your pelvis is all fakaked to get it, right? Reach the arms up. Let's turn our palms up and bend the elbows softly. Lift the collarbone from within your body, not just from the lifting of the arms, right? And then go ahead and turn and look over those right fingers-ish, just the head, not the left shoulder. And here we go into a series. So you can just keep your hands like this, facing this direction. You're gonna drop your left hand down towards your leg and reach that right arm up first. And then yes, a little bit towards the left backside, the short edge of the mat on that left side. Reach forward, forward, forward. So the bottom of the body is really sturdy with that earth element. Either reach the arm over, or you can bring it forward to come over, or hand on hip, elbow and shoulder back. Wherever you are, the ribs probably rolled down, right? The chest rolled down. Can you roll them back again so they're parallel to an imaginary wall in front of you? And then can you keep that left trap soft? And maybe you turn and look up. Take a breath there. Triangle. Grab a block if you need it, of course. Reach your left fingertips up. When you come up, keep the body in the position that it is, right? So don't drop the body lower. Come up a little bit. Pull the kneecap up. That's that Tadasana leg we worked, right? And then maybe you go ahead and see if you can get that right hip in more. The left shoulder rolls open. Chest still towards the imaginary wall in front of you. It turns every single time if I don't pay attention, right? Maybe you creep down a little bit, but not at the expense of the hip popping out or the left shoulder rolling down. It's not wrong. You just get a lot of really amazing benefits here that you can't get in other poses the same way, right? Inhale up. Then when we work triangle like this, turn the toes in, step the feet in. If you want a heel toe, that is okay. Come back to Tadasana. Breathe. So when we come into those standing poses, and I have things going on up top in your body, right? But the lower body is staying in that position. You are weight bearing. The front leg is a weight bearing leg. And so we're getting really great stuff in those bones, right? Go ahead and step those feet out nice and wide. Turn the right toes in, heel back, whole left leg out. Again, I'm going to break it down a little bit because we're going to leave the body in the pose once we get there, the lower body. Look down and have your toes, your shin, your knee, and your thigh. And you might be like, well, of course they are. For me, my knee never wants to follow. I always have to ask my knee and my thigh to follow, external rotation, and then my chest goes that way. So now I got to ask my leg and my knee to stay that way and turn my chest back towards the long edge of my mat, as far as I can comfortably in my body without torquing or tweaking. Hands on hips and bend the left knee. And inhale in. You'll very, very rarely, if ever, hear me see bend 90 degrees. Bend in until you feel like all of those things kind of want to get lost, right? Inhale up, and we'll talk about that when we hold this next one. Come on in, knee over ankle. Again, that's bone stacking, right? And then from there, are you pushing down through all three corners of both feet still? I'm not. Can you feel that rooting in the body, the lower body? Inhale the arms up. Now try to keep everything the same from about your waist down. Nice and sturdy. It's earth. Turn the palms up and the elbows. Find the collarbone lifting internally, and then move it into reverse warrior. Right? And if you're already in reverse warrior, why is that? You think you have to be in it because the timing, because you need to hold something harder, longer, come up, reach forward, bring that forearm down. You've got those 3 arm positions, right? You can swing, well, you can swing in 2 different ways, and you've got 2 different final arm positions, I guess. There's no such thing as final. I wish I hadn't said that. Pushing down through the feet, right? Finding all of the core line. Soft left shoulder, chest turned towards the imaginary wall in front of you. This one we are staying here and we're breaking it down. We're holding these poses a little today, some more than others, maybe turning and looking up, right? And how much weight are you putting into that left elbow? The less you put in, the more your weight bearing in your legs, by the way, right? And then we're going to go to triangle. Reach the right fingertips up. And I'm just putting my hand on my body so you can see when I come up, I'm going to try to keep my body in line with that leg, the where it's been. So I'm up higher is what I'm saying, right? And before I come down, I'm going to keep that left hip in. I'm going to turn that chest towards the imaginary wall in front of me, not my shoulder down, best I can. And then I might creep down a little bit, but again, not at the expense of losing. My teachers always talked about being between 2 panes of glass. If you were between 2 panes of glass on the front and the back side of your body, you wouldn't be able to go into that pose, right? Where your hip sticks out and your chest rolls down to the ground. Take another breath. You're almost there. Again, how much weight is in the left hand? The more you take out of the hands in these poses, the more you get the benefit in the legs. Inhale, come on up. Not saying it's not work. Turn the toes forward, toe heel and or step in and breathe. You hear my breath got really rapid. I'm definitely working, right? It is a hot day here in Minnesota again, so I'm definitely already sweating. So I'm taking breaks in between, giving myself that moment so I don't accumulate too much heat. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into a more neutral pose, we call it, before we go into our front line, our Warrior One series, and then it'll be a class. So go ahead and push down. We're going to do one tree pose, by the way. You're going to push down into all 6 corners, right? We talked last week about if we turn on, right? Our 1, our 2, our 3, between the shoulder blades is 4, neck is 5, crown of the head up 7, right? Then maybe when we go to bend that left knee and put that left leg into position, we already have stability rather than not really thinking about it and whipping it in and then trying to find stable once we get there. That is one way to work, right? And it's not, one's not better or worse. It's just how we're working today. So stabilize and trying to come in a tree. You can bring your arms, hands on hips, hands in front of heart. Arms can be wherever you want them to be. And if you want to play with our work of last week, we brought in the water element by trying to keep the stability of our core line and our right leg. And we moved our arms around in space. And it's okay if you fall. Allow yourself to do that and challenge yourself. Just play with it, whatever it is to you, right? Doesn't have to look like anything. And bring that down. As always, these are invitations. You're listening to them and taking the invitations that sound the best for you today and leaving the ones that don't. Pushing down all 6 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Bring that right foot up and into place anywhere you want to on the leg. Again, push, pull, find your core line, and then maybe we've got that stability. And maybe we play with arms and it might be bringing them to a spot and being still, or it might be moving the arms around today and just playing with whatever that is in your body. And it's okay to fall. That's what this is, right? It's play. We're playing and we're practicing. That's all. Bring that down. One more little series here, friends. So short edge of the mat for this one, I'm going to face my uphill direction. And we're going to bend our knees, hands on hips. Bend your knees and go ahead and float that left leg back. So think Warrior One. You definitely want that left heel down, but you want that foot, that back foot is not turned out much. It's more at like a 90 degree, right? So I reach that back heel back as far as I can instead of letting it dive to the center of the mat. This allows me to move my left inner groin back and my left hip forward, right? The right leg, don't bend into your full bend. You can have a little bend. Inhale, reach the arms up, grab your elbow points today. Pull the elbow flesh up and try to lengthen your side waist, the right and left side. For most of us, that's going to take care of the core line, helping the pelvis and the solar plexus stay contained, right? Now bend that right knee any amount. Don't worry about 90 degrees or anything like that until you can feel your pelvis get pulled forward, right? Don't go that far, go before that. Another one that sometimes happen is the low back gets compressed. You can pitch the body a little forward. Maybe you extend the arms into their full length. Maybe you keep grabbing the elbows if that feels more beneficial. I'm going to stick with the elbows today because that just feels so nice to have that extra support here. And hello, there are many things that this pose does. We're weight bearing again in that right leg, right? That left calf is opening. And I don't know about you, but holy left psoas, the front of that left hip, that hip flexor is tight on me today. And bring those hands down to the hips, push the body, pitch the body forward, tone the belly to float the left foot forward. Bend the knee and float that right leg back. These two little squirrels are just running all over tarnation down here. It's very cute. Again, don't bend the left knee quite yet. My right heel would love nothing more, most of us, to drop into the center. That's the easiest. The hips kind of split, right? We're going to ask that heel to reach back, that right inner groin to roll back, and the right hip to roll forward. Some people teach square hips in Warrior One. I don't. Let that inner groin tell you where you're getting to, and that's beautiful, wherever that is. Now bring your arms up and grab the other forearm in front if you can. Grab the elbow points, and go ahead and lengthen the side waist first, right? Keep the frontal hip points up, keep the solar plexus in by lengthening the side waist as well, right? The back body as well, and then bend to wherever you get to. And that's your Warrior One today. That is beautiful. I love your Warrior One, and I can't even see it. Reach that right outer heel down. And again, notice that your weight bearing in the left leg, that left leg has to work real good to hold you here, the weight of your body, right? Your right calf is probably feeling an opening. Wonderful. Right psoas. Do not let your low back get crunched. You can let the body pitch forward or unbend the knee until you feel the frontal hip points coming up and the low back lengthen, right? No crunching low back for this pose. This is pretty infamous for hurting people's low backs, especially if they do this pose a bunch without the awareness in the low back. Eventually the low back could get pretty pissed. Bring the hands on down. Oh, I forgot to tell you, if you wanted to extend your arms, you could. I apologize. Pitch forward a little bit and step that right foot forward. And here we are in Tadasana. You can bring the arms down by the side. Very soft focus. You don't need to be looking at me or your clothing, right? Or taking in detail of any sort with your visual field. Instead, let it be just kind of a dull, soft focus and turn your quote, gaze inward. And that can be closed eyes, of course. Bring those hands together in front of your chest. Inhale. Bow your head in, taking just a moment of gratitude. And namaste, friends. We're going to namaste from here today so I can keep it a short sequence and get some of those standing poses in for you. So may you be well and may you feel like your bones are stronger and, anything else that you feel.